Okay, today I'm going to show you how I use Ableton's glue compressor and why it's so useful in a modern mix. So first of all, a little bit of history. Ableton's glue compressor is not something they invented themselves. It's a modeled after the famous SSL compressor from the SSL 4000, for example, which is used in many productions over the years and is still being used. And it's very famous for their gluing sound. It's usually referred to something as putting a cohesiveness together, but it's very useful in many different ways. So let's have a look. So first of all, I have a mix from a cover I did. Let's have a listen. So throughout this mix, I have 3 instances of glue compressor enabled. And let's have a listen if I disable each and every one of them. Okay, alright. So as you probably noticed, there were some changes and the biggest one was on the drums, and that's because I used 2 instances on the drums. Let's have a look. So first, on my drum group, I have an instance of glue compressor with attack at 10 milliseconds and release at 0.1 second and a dry wet of 32%. What I'm doing here is referred to as parallel compression. And I'm usually, with that kind of stuff, aiming for more cohesiveness and glued sound in the drums, but also more attack. And if I want more attack on something, I have to let the attack transient through. So I'm dialing the attack time back to a slower setting. So in this case, I have the attack time at 10 milliseconds. And I like to have my release at the lowest possible setting, which is 0.1. I also have the sidechain EQ enabled. And what this allows me to do is basically telling the compressor to not react as much to my kick drum, because I like my kick drum very loud and very bass heavy. And if I were to disable this EQ, let's have a look and listen. It goes crazy with a kick drum, and I don't want that. I want it to mainly react to my snare drum, so I usually like to enable this EQ. And let's have a look at the next group, which is shells, which basically is a group consisting of my snare, my kick drum, and my toms. And here I also have a parallel chain containing a glue compressor and a saturator. The glue compressor here is in a similar setting with a slightly longer attack time, but it really is the one that is giving me the punch for my drums. This is doing the hard work, the hard lifting. Let's just enable and disable it. So this one is getting all the punch, all the aggression, and all the cohesiveness for the shells. And for the last instance, let's have a look at my mix bus. Here I have also a glue compressor with also a sidechain enabled with a similar reason as before, because right here I don't want it to react to my kick drum as well as my bass guitar as much, and mainly to my snare and maybe some guitars. So I still enable this EQ a little bit. And here you can see a big difference to before, which is a different ratio and a different attack setting. Right here, I don't want attack to come through as much, but I want to retain the cohesiveness and have it clamp down whenever my snare drum hits. So whenever my snare drum hits, everything ducks immediately and it feels like an explosion happening. So this is doing something when the snare hits and everything gets ducked down. It feels like a massive sound. And this is the reason why I have a low attack time on my mix bus. Let's have a listen and A/B. So if I enable the compressor, you hear that the whole mix is moving together as one force. And as soon as I disable it, it feels a little bit more disconnected. And also the transients of the drums poke through a little too much, for my liking at least. So this is how I use the glue compressor.